From the garage that sparked the global self-care movement, welcome to the Human Garage Experience, a podcast where we have unfiltered conversations on self-healing, consciousness, and optimizing your life with fascinating individuals changing the status quo. I'm your host, Garry Lineham, and I'm honored to have you here. Let's get down to it. So Zach, I guess I grew up in the world of medicine, consuming your content, and you're an iconic figure, and especially when it comes to science meets medicine meets natural. How is it that you got to be that person?
Yeah, a non-linear path life is, I think, for all of us. But I started in engineering, actually, and then took a hard left turn when I took a year off and went to the Philippines and started birthing babies with a group of international midwives there and really witnessed the miracle of life in a deep and profound way that just, once I'd seen what I saw, I couldn't unsee it. And that led me to take that shift in introspect towards medicine from engineering. And the journey was interesting because I was not a good student leading up until that time. I was not terribly interested in school. I was more passionate about building race cars and building houses and all that. So I was a blue collar kid, grew up in Colorado, and then saw that human life coming out of women, and watching women birth children was just such a radical change in my sense of the world, especially out of these impoverished, you know, malnourished environments. Seeing these perfect babies born just didn't calculate in my head. It was such a vast miracle to explore. And so everything seemed a bit boring after having seen that. And so I shifted to pre-med, and then ultimately decided to go medical school route. And that took me on the journey of the pharmaceutical dream. I really thought that I was going to be part of, and I was told, first day of medical school, I was told, you're going to be the first generation of doctors that will practice personalized medicine. You'll swab somebody's cheek, you'll get their genome, you'll know exactly what diseases they're going to be prone to and which drugs they'll respond to. It was a great promise, and a heady days in the early 1990s. We were just on the cusp of unlocking the human genome. We hadn't yet when I started medical school, but we were just on the verge of doing that. And what we didn't know at the time was we were going to have to rethink our whole concept of a gene, because we only found 20,000 human genes. We thought we had 400,000 because there was 400,000 proteins already mapped. And so we were given a model from Watson and Crick that one gene makes one protein, contributes to the complexity of the design of a human cell. To find out we only had 20,000 genes was an embarrassing fact, because a fruit fly had 13,000 genes and a flea had 30,000 genes. So to find out that humans fell somewhere between a flea and a fruit fly didn't seem quite fair, or quite up to snuff for a species that we had called itself, Homo sapiens sapiens, the wise ones.
Right.
How could we be 2/3 of the genome of a flea?
Yeah.
And so that was a radical moment of humility that we missed. We instead continued to believe that we were going to engineer the future through genes, and that would lead us to gene therapies and all kinds of philosophies about genetics that were inherently flawed by the very existence of only 20,000 human genes. So that was ultimately, I didn't know at the time, but the moment 1996, 97, when that was starting to unfold in the literature, we should have known that environment was about to trump everything. And
Right.
that is now what's emerged, is this whole field of epigenetics, and then ultimately beyond genetics, looking at energetics of human cells and water structure and how life occurs. But the long journey there was, I had to go all the way down the pharmaceutical pipeline and down that rabbit hole deep. And so I was 17 years in academia, internal medicine for years, running hospital wards and ICUs and the rest. And then started to realize I was just part of a puppy mill. I'd discharge a patient, they'd be back 3 weeks, 3 months later with worse disease, put them now 3 weeks in the ICU, finally get them out. They'd come back 3 months later, even sicker. 3 months in the ICU, and then they die. And so that last year of life, consuming millions of dollars of resources with actually no change in outcome. And so that kind of frustrating slippery slope or puppy mill kind of reality started to sink in. And after a few years, realized that I was going to need to do further subspecialization if I was going to find a root cause of something. So I went into endocrinology and metabolism. Endocrinology is the study of hormones and how they coordinate complex systems like 70 trillion human cells into a single symphony of life. Metabolism is the study of energy and how it's produced inside of a system to power that vast network of cells into a single organism. Metabolism is not studied by most endocrinologists as the focus. Most of them go and they're managing diabetes, thyroid, bone disease. It's the hormones that dominate the endocrine world because they're easy to pharmaceuticalize. We can synthesize a hormone, so your thyroid goes out, no problem. Here's thyroid hormone.
Right.
Adrenals go out, no problem. Here's cortisol. And so we have this patch job kind of approach again in endocrinology, which was frustrating to me because I thought I was going to go learn the root cause of everything. And I found my way there through metabolism. And so metabolism is ultimately the study of non-human cells, and it's the study of the way in which the microbiome of the gut interacts with the microbiome inside the cell, which is called mitochondria. And these mitochondria are the energy generators and the information stream of the cellular system. And that got really interesting because nobody had really tackled cancer from the angle of energetics for 100 years. 100 years previous, this guy, Otto Warburg, had come along and said, hey, the mitochondria is actually where cancer begins, not the human cell. He was 100 years ahead of his time. So my lab was working on proving out that it's actually mitochondrial metabolism that's way upstream of something like a human cell genetic disorder that we would call cancer. And that got exciting because we knew how to work with mitochondria around nutrients. And so I developed a vitamin A compound for eliminating cancer without poisoning the cell. You could feed the cell and get it to eliminate cancer.
Right.
So that got super exciting. My research ultimately got shut down by blocking patents from the pharmaceutical industry. Didn't know blocking patents were a real thing until that happened. And that was kind of the beginning of my realization that I was part of a $9 trillion a year industry that's really revolves around creating an energetic thing that we call economy rather than an energetic thing that we call health. And that was hard to come to terms with. Left me in a lot of depression and a sense of kind of no north node left. There was no north star for me to chase. So I went through some deep kind of depression years, 2008 to 2010, and then the universe kind of blew my doors off and had a near-death experience in February of 2010, and that was when my whole world started to come apart in a really deep way. And by summer of that year, I was out of the academia and had started my own nutrition center in rural Virginia. And in that rural environment of chronic poverty, I started innovating, education around food systems to reverse chronic disease through nutrient delivery. And that would ultimately spawn my biotech company a couple of years later that was studying the interface between soil systems, microbiome, nutrient delivery, mitochondrial function. And so that would debut the Intelligence of Nature science and brand that came out. And that's now been running for 10 years. And got hundreds of thousands of families on that worldwide. And it's basically reconnecting the biology of the mitochondria to the biology of the microbiome through soil extracts. And that's become a real revolution for the industry, I think, to start to understand how we can understand a declining nutrient density in our food and the resulting explosion of disease that comes a decade or two in wake of that, death of the topsoils.
That, I mean, that literally is what's happening. It's the realization that it's not just about the biology the way we thought it is, that there's more connection. But you talked about connection to energetics. So then I have to go all the way over to emotions and energetics.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you're deeply connected to emotions and energetics, and from a spiritual side. So why don't we jump right there?
Yeah. Well, this is what we're left with is an energetic solution. So genomics is a really frightening area of study when you start to come to terms with the long-term effects of chemical and environmental injury. There's something called compounding generational trauma that occurs genetically. And so DDT is a good example of this. DDT was a chemical that we started spraying into neighborhoods in the 1950s to kill mosquitoes.
I used to run literally
behind the truck
because I grew up in rural Canada.
Yeah. Yeah, and kids would ride their bikes after in the spring into the air, aerosolizing this chemical to kill mosquitoes. And we thought, my gosh, this is a health revolution. There'll be no more malaria. There'll be no more mosquito-borne diseases. And so it was a revolution. And there was no obvious injury to the people that were getting sprayed with that in those first years. It wasn't until those young women that were being sprayed started having children that we realized 15 years later, oh no, what have we done? Because teratogenic kind of birth defects, metabolic injury was really obvious in that next generation. So we banned DDT by the late 60s in not just the US, but many countries around the world. It is still sprayed around the world. India is still spraying all of India with DDT today.
I think we even had it in Canada, still in bug repellent sprays into the 70s, mid 70s.
Oh yeah, yeah. And there's parts of the developing world that are still selling that chemical and distributing it, globally. And so there's still millions of pounds of that being sprayed into the world, which is, just bonkers that we can't learn from our mistakes. But the depth of the mistake is really this generational compounding phenomenon. And so we didn't realize it in first generation. Gen 2, we started realizing, oh, geez, we got a problem. By generation 3, we were seeing deep metabolic injuries, immune dysfunction, all kinds of things by the 1980s. We are now recognizing generation 4 of the DDT. So every generation is measured by about 25 years. And so 100 years later, we'll find the full effect of DDT in the 1950s, even though we stopped spraying it. What's happening there is each generation is compounding the severity of the upstream injury because of the epigenetic patterning. That single chemical injury led to methylation of the surface of the genome, an epigenetic shift. That then affected thousands of the 20,000 human genes. The second generation is born with that shutdown of thousands of genes. That leads to all sorts of problems, inflammatory, inability to detox, methylation problems. That second generation now not just dealing with the history of mom's exposure, but now the downstream effects. So that one's storing. Third generation, now the original one of grandma and mom, and third generation has compounding. By the fourth generation, you've seen the full effect of the injury, and at the same time, at that moment, as you go into the fourth generation, all of that cumulative genetic trauma is stored in the germline, meaning in the sperm and in the ovum.
Sure.
It's no longer epigenetic. It's now a genetic trait of humanity.
So that brings up the question, because it's a good question that I ask all the time. What are we doing today that we're going to look at 25 years from now and say that was stupid? And
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. We're on the same page, but let's nail that down. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, one of your big topics has been glyphosate.
Yep.
And I think people don't realize that glyphosate really was patented as an antibiotic originally.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it was actually patented initially as a chelator of minerals to clean municipal pipes. And so it was cleaning out big industrial sewage systems that were getting sludged up with minerals.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were pouring glyphosate at really high concentrations to clean out those sewer lines. Super effective. The downside, or the problem, became that they couldn't commercialize it that way, was that that amount of glyphosate in the downstream river or wherever that sewage pipe was pouring into was annihilating life. And so they realized the ecologic damage was far too great using it as a mineral chelator. So they repurposed it in 1976 as a weed killer, because they were recognizing that even small quantities were enough to kill weeds. They were annihilating fish and everything else at the high concentrations. So these small levels, they realized maybe we can get it at a small enough level and we won't directly affect the fish, and we will just kind of do this. But a lot of what you guys talk about in the human garage around the fascia is mineral deficiency.
Right.
And so in the 1970s, we started to undermine mineral availability in soil, therefore plant systems, therefore human nutrition, started to become devoid of minerals through the chelation effect. To your point, it then was later realized it was a potent antibiotic, antifungal, antiparasite, so it was repatented as all of the above and put in higher concentrations to kill things in animal feed and used as an antimicrobial in drugs and other things. And so it's been kind of repurposed many times. And the reason it's so disruptive to biology is not just because it chelates minerals, but because it disrupts protein synthesis. Again, the fascial system that you focus on is really a key environment of macro protein structures. So the fascial plane is these complex proteins that create these superstructures, kind of like the I-beams in a skyscraper or something.
Sure.
And so that superstructure of connective tissue of the fascia is made up of dozens of critical proteins, hundreds of more minor proteins, all suspended with microminerals. That system started to be undermined by the decrease in protein production because glyphosate became ever present. Glyphosate disrupts a specific enzyme pathway called the shikimate pathway. And that shikimate pathway makes key critical amino acids available to human biology. You might remember that there's only 22 amino acids.
Right.
9 of those are called essential amino acids that we have to get from soil and plant life through our diet because we can't produce them. And so picture this kind of like the alphabet. 26 letters, you got your 5 vowels. You take Z out of the alphabet, you misspell my name and zucchini, but otherwise you're fine. But you take an A out, and now you misspell most of the protein or
Right.
most of the words in the English language. The essential amino acids are the vowels of the protein environment. So you start to delete the essential amino acids, and now you're misspelling proteins all over the place. And so the very specific ones that are made by the shikimate pathway are complex carbon structures that are these carbon ringed or aromatic amino acids. And it's things like tryptophan, alanine, phenylalanine, tyrosine. These are the 4 of the critical 9 vowels of the protein world. And so we started adding a chemical in the 1970s that took away minerals and started deleting 4 of the critical 9 vowels within the protein synthesis environment, or the amino acids. So we started misbuilding or creating fouled versions of protein structure by the 1980s as we started accumulating this chemical at adequate levels in soil, food, and water, air. Today we spray 4 billion pounds a year of this chemical into our
And we still spray it.
every year, every country,
And-
exception of Russia.
And so for people who don't understand, because there still is, even though that you've been out preaching this for a long time. When I got into clinical practice, everybody was talking about you and glyphosate, but people don't really grasp the magnitude of it. Like, what is it? What is glyphosate in that people would know?
Glyphosate's the active ingredient in Roundup, and Roundup is the most ubiquitous, marketed direct-to-consumer and farmer product for killing weeds, herbicide. But that chemical was so effective in so many different areas that it got repurposed many times. And the place in which it's causing most human harm is probably as a desiccant or drying agent for our crops.
Yeah,
And
they dry their wheat with it.
Wheat in 1991 was actually innovated by a farmer in Ireland. There was early winter coming. They needed to get the wheat crop out of the farm before it got wet. And so he came up with the idea that he could spray the entire wheat field with glyphosate or Roundup and get it dead in 3 days so that he could harvest it before the big storm was coming. So he managed to do that, told some of his buddies, hey, I got this crop out of the ground. Everybody else lost their crop because the early winter came, wiped out the wheat fields of Ireland, and this one farmer won the game. And so that got famous overnight among farmers. And then within a year or two, Monsanto realized, wait, we got a new product.
Right.
Let's relabel it as a desiccant, and we won't call it Roundup. We'll call it 3 other trade names. And so it got used by the mid-1990s in high doses to dry wheat, soybeans, legumes like other legumes like your lentils, things like this. Lentils are probably the highest concentration, and Canada is growing most of those for the world now. So most of the lentils that are eaten in India, grown in Canada under glyphosate.
You got to be
spray.
kidding me.
Not kidding.
Really?
We are poisoning India with the glyphosate of Canada.
Canada's poisoning India. Wow. Being a Canadian, that's an interesting.
Yep.
So, and this glyphosate, it's everywhere right now. It's in our coffee. It's in all of our packaged goods. It's in anything that's basically not organic pretty much today.
Yeah, it's actually in 85% of the air we breathe. It's in 85% of the rainfall.
Yeah.
It's ubiquitous. It's a water-soluble toxin on a water planet. And so it's everywhere. And so our laboratory has been working on the direct mechanisms by which glyphosate damages mitochondria in human cells, protein synthesis being a big one. In the last 12 years, we've published data on this, published the root cause of gluten sensitivity is actually the glyphosate poisoning,
Yes.
all this stuff. That's more than 10-year-old science, and yet we continue to call it gluten sensitivity, make a $40 billion industry out of
Yes.
gluten-free foods and everything else. Meanwhile, we've got this ever increasing dependence of the herbicides and pesticides because the labor force within the farming industry continues to go down. So farmers are now managing 10 times, 100 times larger amounts of land with a fraction of the labor. So they're more dependent on chemical inputs than ever before.
Right. And the glyphosate, what what people don't realize is that it's proven scientifically to cause cancer and a whole bunch of other things. As a matter of fact, Monsanto was just purchased by Bayer
Hmm.
recently to avoid or to put aside liability for the glyphosate epidemic that's coming in the world. It is an epidemic, right?
We can't even imagine the nuclear bomb we've set off in the genome of humanity. We have done something that will only be detected by 2050, and by 2050 we'll see the full impact of the mistake we've made with glyphosate. But because of that generational compounding, we haven't even seen the end of it yet. And every year we spray more of it, not less. And so, unlike DDT, where we recognized our problem early, we have turned a blind eye on all the damage done with glyphosate for almost 70 years now. We knew as far back as the 1950s that this organophosphate category was toxic to humans. We knew that largely because of Agent Orange, which started getting sprayed in Vietnam and Cambodia and the
And what
rest
happened there?
in the 1950s and 60s, and we were causing cancer with Agent Orange. Agent Orange is an organophosphate, the same chemical structure as glyphosate, and it was made by Monsanto. And so Monsanto was actually a chemical warfare
Yeah, that's
company
what people don't realize. Even Bayer was involved in chemical warfare during
in World War
Auschwitz.
II.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they were providing the chemicals which were gassing and experimenting on humans.
Specifically around sterilization and
Yeah,
fertility.
yeah.
And so now Bayer is producing its own GMO crop that is called Liberty Link. And that chemical disrupts the protein critical to human fertility. So maybe coincidence, maybe not, but that research was done in the 1940s.
No, there's no coincidence. I mean, listen, I'm going to go right off the edge on this. I just say it's the same people, it's the same scientists. Project Paperclip that came over from Germany after World War II. They became the head of industry in the United States, and it's the same projects just continued.
Yeah, it looks like that. I mean, it's certainly same industry. The scientists are long dead, so I can't really say the same scientists, but
What
but
they brought it
the
over.
the
Yeah,
science lineage is there. And it's big industry, and it drives economies that we all believe is necessary now. We're sitting here in the UAE, which is kind of the spear point now of global economies in a lot of ways. Even though it's a small economy compared to the United States, it's an innovative economy. It's bringing a lot of industry here
very.
from around the world, and it's growing fast. And so when you find yourself at the tip of a spear of economies being driven by these industries, you can quickly see how we're all participating in this process. We all created Monsanto,
Yeah,
Bayer, and
for
the
sure.
rest. And so there's this tendency for us to demonize these industries, but the fact is we have all been benefiting from the downstream results of these highly extractive, destructive economies that are scalable. And that's what makes them so productive monetarily and destructive ecologically, is that we have decided that money energy is different than biologic energy. And we did that by removing any kind of direct backing of currencies from biology thousands of years ago. So the gold backed currencies of the 20th century were not biologically backed either, and there is no gold cycle in there. And so what I'm really promulgating for this century, if we're going to survive as a species, is a new economy built on carbon metabolism as the backing to currencies rather than gold or some other scarcity asset. When we back it by carbon, meaning carbon metabolism of green living systems, it's an abundance model of currency for the first time. So right now we've banked on scarcity as the value for every currency, US dollar to cryptocurrency, is all scarcity models of value or currency. If we start backing currency by biology, there will be an abundance model of wealth for the first time in the world.
I was a part of one of the first blockchains ever built, and this is the idea originally around health in the state of Washington.
Yeah.
We actually built a technology that would identify, that would do identity and authority, with the thought that this is where it would go. This is in '98,
Yeah.
like well before. I I hear you talking now, and this in a less educated way. This is what I'm saying constantly to people. This is where we go. So, what is that coming? Let's go full circle all the way back to being a doctor. What is it that being a doctor? What is it that you've learned that you were taught as a doctor that's most harmful to people today?
I would say that, number one, direct harm on a daily basis that's passive. So something that you're taking into your body that's injuring you is definitely the chemical industry. And so small molecules from your cosmetics, from your clothing, from your food, from your water, from your rain, all of those are doing daily damage. Average cosmetic exposure for a woman a day, 120 carcinogens. So it's hardly limited to the food and glyphosate. We're simply just bathing our bodies in carcinogens. The food and water system now, really detrimental to health globally. The way in which we actively participate in the harm is through emotional toxicity. And so those are the two that really interface to create any disease.
So, disease. So, I have a way of saying to people that disease, the body's not at ease. If have fear, anger, grief, or shame in my body, or any dysregulated emotion, I'm not at ease. And then if I keep that over a period of time, that disease is going to be measurable. And that's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah. And so from a biologic standpoint, going back to one of your earlier questions, what are we going to find out in 25 years? We're going to find out, and we already know, but we're going to prove it, at the global scale of 8 billion people, that we are at the end of a biologic cycle on the planet. And humans will no longer be able to procreate. Already, 1 in 3 can't. But we will reach this critical mass of, a complete extinction event through our fertility due to the stored chemical trauma in our genome over the last 50, 80 years.
Yeah, I see that for sure. And infertility is the number one issue.
Number one issue.
And
alongside of that, we're going to find out that there's something that supersedes genetics, and that's energetics.
Okay, so now we're talking.
And so
this is my because I say to people all the time, and I used to get beat up for this saying this online, but the quickest way to just regulate your hormones is have an anger outburst. Because you have an anger outburst, you're going to fire adrenaline, norepinephrine, and cortisol right away. That's going to off-regulate your pH. It's going to stop your digestion from processing, and it's become norm for people to be emotionally dysregulated today. Is that because of the food and the chemicals, in your opinion?
Definitely a big part of it. So I'd say it's twofold. One, we've all kind of outsourced our belief system to natural language models. And currently, natural language models are the foundation for all AI. But long before there was AI, we had outsourced to natural language models our reality, meaning we had defaulted our belief of reality to somebody else's story. And we allowed storytelling to take over our reality. And so we believed that there was a Cold War. We believed that, Russia was the enemy. We believed that we got to the moon. We believed all kinds of really interesting things. And so this storytelling of Hollywood got better and better and better at creating this false reality for the world. And humanity bought into it because it was generating an enormous amount of economy. And so the wealth and convenience that came out of this storytelling of the white picket fence and the American dream and everybody can own a car and everybody can have a washer and dryer, that dream was so addictive because of the belief that comfort is, trumps everything, drove us to this point where we are chasing an artificial reality through storytelling and have stopped listening to our bodies. So this was the uncoupling of reality through language models, through storytelling.
I completely agree, and we were talking about that earlier. That's why, as Human Garage, that's why we're going back to narrative. They retell a different story, but um, as you look at this and you're talking about storytelling, and how much of the history that we know about the human body, how much of that is, let's say, either incorrect or a lie?
I'd say any story we've been told is probably inaccurate because it's not a story that is the reality. The reality is it's a felt system. And so there's two forms of learning: education and experiential learning.
Mhm.
Education is programming from somebody else's story. And so we have, for the last couple hundred years, relied heavier and heavier and outsourced learning to an education model. Education programs us with somebody else's beliefs and therefore very easy to control our outcome, our behavior.
Right. So that's like current academia.
That's current academia. It's from kindergarten on through. Before kindergarten, we are educating our children.
Yeah.
As parents, we're taught, teach them, their first word, and then celebrate the crap out of that, and then teach them how to write their name. And so we're teaching them that the value of their intelligence is around their output of language or their mastery of numbers and letters. Along the way, we are deprogramming them from the felt reality.
Mm-hmm.
The human body has more than 5 senses. It has at least 12. The 7 that we don't count in touch,
Sure.
taste, things are known as chakra centers in Chinese medicine. The chakra centers, these big 7 energy balls that are focused in the body from kind of the pelvic floor to the crown of the head. And those things are very, very sensitive machines for really creating a real map of your learned experience. And so our root chakra is really good at sensing our relationship to nurture or nature.
Sure.
Our second chakra is extremely good at the gut, of giving us that gut sense of intuition.
Yeah.
That gut instinct that people talk about.
Right.
That's second chakra. Third chakra is your sense of wellness, right down in the solar plexus. Am I well or am I not? That kind of just gnawing thing, like there's something wrong with me.
Right.
Will drive women to clinics for years before the doctors finally admit there's something wrong or find out what's wrong. So there's a deep sense at that solar plexus of am I well or not? Heart center, am I understood? Am I, loved and seen for my beauty? And am I seeing others for their beauty? That deep sense of connectivity to others at the end. Fifth chakra, am I communicating my truth? Am I heard? And if so, then I respond with beneficial effects down these lower chakras. Sixth chakra up top. This is your kind of interface with your creative force in your perceived reality. Is it matching it, your creative potential down in your second chakra, that womb-like quiet environment from which your instinct can create? You connect sixth and second chakra, now you're part of the creation force of nature. Seventh chakra, your sense of connection to soul, or your energetics. And so this is energetics to biologic interface of the seventh chakra. So you're sensing all these things all the time. When the seventh chakra goes out, you've got anxiety disorder, panic attack, or major depression, because you've lost your connection to the North Star of your soul journey, soul path.
Thanks for watching and tuning in. These conversations have radically shifted my life, and I want you to experience those radical shifts too. Take these conversations and integrate them into your body by joining one of our fascial maneuver reset programs. Introduction to Fascial Maneuvers, 7-day reset or 28-day reset. We're going to put the links below. Take that cerebral knowledge and that experience that you're having right now and bring it into your life by resetting it in your body. These programs have radically shifted my life, and I know they'll radically shift yours. Don't wait another moment. Reset your life today. I mean, we can really talk now. I know you know this, but you're a medical doctor, and you're legitimately smarter than 99.9% of the doctors out there when it comes to the aspects of how humans relate to our environment, because it's not taught that way. It's our environment that relates to it. You're talking about chakras. Do you get a hassle from other scientists and doctors when you think this way, talk this way?
Maybe so. I'm interacting with those people less and less, I guess. But this is 9,000 years of science. And so the chakra system was defined 9,000 years ago by Chinese medicine and many other indigenous sciences. We think of indigenous science as maybe as backwards or primitive. That was a belief that was really programmed into us by the education system in the early 20th century, 1910,
But it's
Flexner
not.
Report. And so before that, for thousands of years, we accepted that science was science, and science was experiential, not programmed. And so the experiential learning that drove science for hundreds of years was showing us that these things, well, for thousands of years, proved out not only that the chakra system existed, but that the emotions stored in the human body could disrupt those chakras.
Right.
So 9,000 years of science had proven all that. And then we come along 100 years ago with the ability to measure cholesterol and blood pressure, and we say, well, this is the new science. We can measure stuff. Well, that must be the new science, and we just developed small molecules of aspirin in the early 20th century from Bayer. So Bayer, now Monsanto, was the first to innovate with aspirin, salicylic acid from roots. So they have the blockbuster drug, and their second big blockbuster was heroin. And so they popularized heroin. You could buy heroin in the Sears catalog in the 19-teens.
Yeah, we used to be able to buy heroin.
Yeah, it was the non-addictive morphine.
Yeah.
So it was so that was Monsanto all the way through. So these pharmaceutical companies were making small molecules that were not natural to the environment through disrupting nature's design, and so they found those patentable. So they patented aspirin as a perturbed version of salicylic acid. They patented heroin as a broken version of morphine. and went on down the course. And now, of course, the organophosphates and everything else that they've continued to perpetuate. And so these chemical companies became so dominant because they could own the patent, and therefore they could scale the technology. Before that, you couldn't patent oregano. And anybody could grow in your backyard.
Sure.
You knew if you made a tea out of that, you would reduce the results of a respiratory illness or something like that. And so for thousands of years, medicine was a decentralized practice, and it was understood to be based in nature 100% of the time. It was only around 1910 that we decoupled our scientific and medical realms from nature.
Rockefeller medicine.
Rockefeller medicine, which is to say small molecule chemical medicine. Rockefellers were, of course, oil giants, and Standard Oil was the giant on the planet. They could sell, a barrel of oil for a few dollars. They could sell small molecules broken out of that oil for thousands of dollars per gallon. And so it was the innovation of breaking apart carbon molecules into these small molecule drugs that really held the promise for massive economies. And today that's proved out. Today, the global pharmaceutical economy is around $9 trillion. Just in the US alone, it's $4 trillion. $4 trillion out of small molecule chemicals versus our entire military is $1 trillion.
Yeah.
Our entire energy sector, $2.5 trillion.
This is the military.
This is the biggest industry ever invented is small molecule chemicals.
I mean, this goes in 1,000 different places, and I'm glad we're having this conversation. So we have energy, and we have all these things that are bombarding us from an energetic level. We have a lot of people that are trying to disrupt that belief system, in science and the world. Like, for example, EMFs or Wi-Fi and stuff like that. What's the effects of radio frequency on the human biology from your point of view?
I mean, we are antenna. Basically, we're an antenna system. We're a water column that has a bunch of suspended DNA strands in it. And DNA functions as a very highly sensitive resonance structure, an antenna to the electromagnetic frequencies generated inside the body and coming into the body. EMF is not really an issue as long as you're in nature barefoot.
Right. And barefoot.
Yeah.
That's my brand.
Exactly. So as soon as you,
I get troubles in cities when I'm barefoot too, by the way, sometimes.
yeah, of course, yeah, you walk into a hotel right now in Dubai without shoes on you, and you have a problem.
Yeah.
And so, but when we uncoupled our bodies from nature, then we became very prone to the invasion or infiltration of electromagnetic field from outside of the body into our bodies. Barefoot, touching the earth, grounded, your skin acts as a Faraday cage. Electromagnetic field stops at your skin. You are not grounded. Now your 5G network, everything else is bombarding the inside of your body because you've lost the Faraday cage. You've lost that protective umbrella.
That's why grounding every day. Simple little mechanisms.
Simple thing. Grounding.
So part of the, like when I'm traveling around the world, and I've been for 2 years. So part of it is every place I has to have access to grass, access to water. Those are the things for me, grass and water. If I can get out there, I find myself even in Chicago in the middle of winter, like just to set my circadian rhythm. Even if it's cold, I go outside barefoot, get on the snow, look at the sunrise, look at the sunset to reset my clock.
Concrete actually works really well.
It does.
Concrete's a superconductor. It's silica based, and so sand on the beach or your concrete sidewalk, both very, very.
But not the tar.
Asphalt doesn't work.
Yeah, asphalt
doesn't work. But if you're on a sidewalk in the middle of Chicago, you're grounded. So it doesn't take long.
The answer to EMFs and a lot of the dirty frequencies that we get is really just getting into nature.
Yeah, and so at night, sleeping, I use grounding sheets for the last 15 years. They're very effective. You simply just ground the body during rest. Now, all night long when you're asleep, that Faraday shield is intact. Your skin is intact.
Do you know Justin Franson, EMF rocks?
Sure.
Yeah. So I carry rocks around with me.
No, yeah.
I like to get my rocks off all the time.
Yeah, Justin's a wonderful guy.
Yeah. So I found that to be super effective. I've even found it affects I do a demonstration where we lift somebody up, and then you can't lift them up. You put a EMF rock bag on them, and then the people can lift that person up. In other words, it changes the way that biology interacts with, let's say, what we perceive as gravity. I don't see it that way.
That's right.
I have so many questions that I prepared that I wanted to ask, but I think we're going in a really good direction.
I think I'm going to just sum it up, maybe because I've been going in multiple directions, which I often do, but let's see if we can tighten it up to where we've gotten so far, which is when humans uncouple from nature, we become very prone to disease. When nature is in touch with any biology, there is a regenerative, energetic, feedback loop that prevents disease and leads us to this rapid regeneration effect at the cellular level. So you touch nature, you're grounded, you've got access to nutrients, minerals, you got access to sunshine, fresh water, water with minerals in it. All of those things lead to a regenerative biology. This was our normal lives up until the last few centuries. And over these last few centuries, and it has been centuries since we've been connected to nature well. This is why the Industrial Revolution of the 1800s, spawned the infectious disease era of tuberculosis and consumption, as it was called back in the 1800s, and cholera and your malaria and all these things. It was the concentration of humans away from nature that led to these diseases that then justified the pharmaceutical industry stepping in, saying, well, we got to fight nature because nature's clearly against us. But the fact was, nature was never against us, else we could never have developed as a species. We were supported, and in fact, we are nature speaking through our bodies. We're complex ecosystems speaking through. And then our dedication to this kind of chemical solutioning to our food and to our pharmacy over the 20th century led to this deep disconnect from energy. And this was the undermining of microbiome of soil systems, nutrients in the plants, therefore decreased strength and vitality within our microbiome of our gut, therefore less nutrient delivered to the human body, therefore less caloric and mineral exchange at the mitochondrial level, therefore less energy for repair and regeneration. So what this led to at a population level was glyphosate added in 1976, immediate decrement in mitochondria. Each year more glyphosate, each year less metabolism. By the early 1980s, obesity epidemic. Obesity, the first symptom of decreased mitochondrial metabolism. You can no longer burn the calories, so you have to send them back to the liver and store them as fat.
Right.
So fatty liver, 5 years of that, you have type 2 diabetes. So by the late 80s, oh my God, we got a type 2 diabetes epidemic going in the United States. The most energetically demanding system of the body is the immune system. And so by the early 1990s, allergy to everything, gluten sensitivity, gluten allergies, celiac disease, all the kids go from peanut allergies all the way to avocados and cacao, and everything you can imagine is now causing severe allergies in our children. The air you breathe, suddenly everybody's allergic to dust, pollen, molds. We've been living around this stuff for thousands of years and now suddenly intolerant to everything. This is the decrement of energy available to the immune system. So decreasing energy, increasing glyphosate in the 1990s, we get to autoimmune disease by the late 1990s. This is where the immune system is not just fighting nature outside of itself, it's fighting the nature within itself. And so now you're destroying your own body with your immune system. 1 in 4 girls in the United States with a thyroid antibody by age 12 by 2002. And so 25% of the girls in the country destroying her own thyroid by age 12. And so the weight of autoimmunity still is not recognized globally. Not even close. It's a very hidden epidemic still. Yeah. But by the early 2000s, we're unmasking the attention deficit, autism, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, so neurologic collapse. Alongside of those neurologic dysfunctions was the mood disorders, panic attack, generalized anxiety disorder, bipolar disorder, 1998, 2005, exploding. By mid-2000s, we realized we got a cancer epidemic. Leukemias, lymphomas, solid tumors like pancreatic cancer, bladder cancer, thyroid cancer, prostate cancer, breast cancer, all going up 5x, 10x in just a matter of a decade. That defies all of our models of how carcinogens even happen. So massive compounding. It's because the metabolic life force is decreasing steadily every 5 years. By 2010, infertility globally. By 2015, collapse of the endocrine system, gender dysregulation, chronic fatigue syndromes, chronic regional pain syndromes, and deep dysfunction of the immune system that we would call now things like chronic COVID and things like that. That's really just a description of where we're at energetically as a species. COVID or no COVID, we would have a deep chronic fatigue syndrome that we would call something.
Sure.
Right now we're calling it long COVID, but
it was going to happen.
Calling it chronic fatigue before that.
It was going to happen before.
It already was and still happening. So the fact is, this is all just symptoms of a declining metabolism as a planet. And so on top of this, you look at the ecology story, climate change, climate crisis, climate catastrophes, firestorms, all of the things burning down LA, burning down all over the place. It's biological collapse, it's sociopolitical collapse, it's wars, it's pestilence, it's economic collapse, the US dollar failing. It's all because the metabolism of the planet is going the same direction. It's all going down.
We're part of the ecosystem. And if the bacteria in our body are not good, then the ecosystem in our body is not good. And we are the bacteria of the planet.
We're the most complex landscape of the planet.
Yeah.
And so if we're talking ecosystems, there's nothing more spectacular than a human body. Right. I have inside of my body more species per cubic centimeter than any other place in the world. More than coral reefs, more than jungles, more than rainforests. This is the most complex ecology on the planet. So the body is a computer, but fluid adaptive biological computing system. That's what I say. Would you agree? Yeah, for sure. So then, it's a quantum computer. Yeah, quantum computer. So let's take a look at topics. Like, one of the things that I challenged early was the brain's in charge. If the body's a computer, could you see the brain as a processor? That is the CPU chip. So the central processing unit in a cell phone or a laptop is the thing that determines the speed of calculation. But it's never written anything. It's never done anything. It's never had an idea. So we're on the same page there. Yeah. And so because one of the diversion points, so I came into medicine from cryptology and business and solutions, and I looked at the science of the body, and I said, this doesn't make sense. Like, one of them was we put a nerve conduction testing on the body, and we put EEG on the head. We stimulated the foot. That whole route path from stimulation through to motor control was 1.5 seconds. And I asked a seemingly stupid question. Well, what happens when I step on glass? And they said, well, dummy, you're not a doctor. You don't know. It's a ganglion reflex. And I said, when I step on glass, I don't go boing. I actually move intelligently. And there's something that's informing my nervous system to move before my brain and my muscles know to. And the same thing when somebody throws something at you and you're not aware of it. So there's this higher state of awareness. And I've chose to believe that state of awareness was the fascia originally, but I see the fascia as just a conduit to that field. It's an electromagnetic field. Right. So the electromagnetic field is what we call intelligence. Sure. And so we're accessing that field of intelligence through a neural network, through a fascial system, through the microbiome itself. In biology, we call this quorum sensing. And so quorum sensing is a phenomenon when there's enough population density and diversity, you end up with this hyper-intelligent behavior. And so if there's enough species of bacteria and fungi in a complex system, they start to do things that they could have never done on their own. They can build, neural networks called mycelial networks that go for kilometers, and they can transit nutrients back and forth across a 100-kilometer zone intelligently. A single bacteria has absolutely no idea what's going on way over 100 kilometers from it. But together, they create this electromagnetic field, this universal understanding of what the whole system is requiring and what resources it has available, and it's a gifting economy across this whole plane. That's quorum sensing at the biologic level. The human body, as mentioned, is the most complex ecosystem that nature has provided us on this planet so far. And it's this biodiversity that's creating this quantum field intelligence, or this quorum sensing of the human body. And so when a baseball player hits a ball, like you said, this is millions of seconds decision making and coordination at a highly intelligent level to be able to hit that little baseball on the end of a bat that's 3 feet from your hands. It's mathematically absolutely impossible that's not an intelligent design or intelligent reaction, not a ganglion reflex. It can't be, and it can't be done by the brain. Like, one of the things that I got was you put a robotic hand on. Today, somehow that hand works. So I ask all the time, well, how did that thought, like, if the muscles are driving and the brain was driving the muscles, how did that thought get into the hand? Because it wasn't wired up to our nervous system. So that thought had to come or originate somewhere else. That thought had to be outside the body. I hypothesize that movement came from the field, and as a highly intelligent electrical impulse, call it a positive signal, and the grounding of the bones in the body and the muscle and the fascia was a negative signal meeting it to create intelligent movement. I agree with that. Okay, and then the other part is that when the conduit between it is the fascial network, the biological crystal. And when that fascial network was heavy metal, tox, dehydrated, non-efficient, then there was a delay in that signal, and that delay caused a
that miscalculation, it causes jerky movement or ineffective movements, even things like Parkinson and stuff like that, where the body can't regulate the signal that's telling us to move.
Because the emotion's in the way.
Right. And I saw emotions as the conduit, is a transfer language between the DNA and the field. Okay, I wasn't going to go here, but I think I have to now. So I want to show you something because this is something that drove. I'm a scientist in a different way, observation, and I just look at patterns. So I'll start off with my twin. I'll show you my twin.
Got it.
Teeth are the same, ears are the same, eyes are the same, hair is the same, coloration on the neck.
Love it.
Yeah, it's pretty sure that we're twins. And then you look at your feet.
Yeah.
Same markers in the feet.
Yeah.
Now, what's really amazing about this story is that we actually aren't from the same parents.
Right.
But what is the same is this.
The birth chart.
Identical.
Yeah.
And if I found one of them, it was cool, but I have 45 that I found.
45 birth twins.
Yes.
Yeah. Amazing. How cool. We love this.
And so this is part of what, I mean, now I got you here. I can use you from a scientific point of view, because people just don't want to listen to me from a scientific point of view because I didn't go to school for it. I mean, really, that's what it is. But I've experimented and studied and worked with tens of thousands of people personally. And I've reviewed hundreds of thousands and now millions of results. And what I've found is that, so the way I see it is that birth chart, these numbers here all have a value. And I call that a code. And I actually read that code like I do computer code.
Sure.
And say, this is how your fluid adaptive biological computing system responds to stimulus. It doesn't define you. It just tells us how your computer is going to run the program.
It was basically the condition of the program when you entered the world, took your first breath, right?
Bingo.
And so lots of different programs running, but the condition of that program at the moment you started your biologic journey is going to determine your behavior.
Right. And then environment has an impact or an effect on that biology, which changes slightly the version of how that biology grows. Because when we're a baby, we're basically just a ball round goo. And we pretty much all look the same, but something makes us taller, longer, leaner, heavier, and it's consistent amongst astrological types. So I developed a model that treated humans based upon their astrology. And and I could tell, I forget, when is your birthday again?
October 31st.
Okay. That makes so much sense. Scorpio. So for you, gallbladder. Gallbladder goes all the way down here, which is the protector of the Akashic records, the other realm. I'm actually Sagittarius. So technically, I'm at pushing the end of reality, and you're protecting us from or the gatekeeper of the Akashic records, which is really where reality starts. That's the way I see it.
That's good. Yeah, I got Sagittarius was mid sky right when I was born. So I got 3 planets in Sagittarius, and so my rising sign was Aquarius, and my sun sign is Scorpio. Sag plays a huge role in my energy, and so we see the world very similarly, largely because that Sagittarius effect probably.
That is really cool. I didn't know that. I'm now going to run your birth chart.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to do that because I developed an AI model. So everything I've said, every conversation I've had, personally or otherwise, since 2020 has been recorded. And so we put it into an AI because at some point, what we're doing is changing the way people think about the human experience, which means that you can't just apply something. You have to give them a way to reference it. So they need to talk to me, and they can't talk to me at scale. So that's why we created an AI model. Comes out in a month. AI Garry. It's pretty fun, but it does astrology I find much better than I do.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to ask some questions from our belief system. One of the things I kept getting hit at, and I get hit at this a lot today, is I said, if the brain used to be thought as a supercomputer, I said, basically, you come into this world, you look at biology. If you think the brain and the muscles and the brain runs the body, or you think otherwise, that changes the trajectory of everything you think afterwards. And so one of the ways that people would say it, I would say that the brain has 100 billion nerve processing cells. And I would say that the fascia has 100 trillion. And there's not a lot of science around the fascia. But the fascia has this sensory input, like you said, the biological beings inside of us, they connect to this field that have sensory inputs that go way beyond our ability to even measure, right? That's a
Yes.
fair statement.
Yes, for sure.
Would you say that our fascia as an organ or interstitium, would you say it's at least 1,000 times, has 1,000 times more processing power than a brain?
I mean, it's hard to map the two on top of each other because it's kind of like asking the difference between CPU and RAM.
Sure.
And so I would say that the fascial system simply has a different purpose. I don't think it's a central processing unit. I think it's a memory device.
Yeah, fair enough.
And
Yeah.
so it's kind of comparing two different parts of the computer in some ways.
Well, so let's go language.
Yeah.
If you were to dismember the body, you'd cut it up in pieces.
Yeah.
So if you want to remember where language came from, you're actually collecting those pieces together. So in different parts of the body.
And that's accurate. So memory is not stored in the brain. We know that the CPU chip isn't the memory source of a computer or of a human body.
Yeah.
So you have to have RAM, which is your short-term memory, and then you have your ROM, which is your long-term memory bank. And the two of those are different parts of the body. And so there's neural pieces of RAM, and then there's long-term memory, which is really in the water structure itself. And so the neural bundles out in the periphery, as well as the myofascia, I think, are where we're storing short-term memory. Short-term may be as much as your lifespan.
Sure.
Long-term memory. What happened before you? What happened before you? What happened before humanity? What happened at the very beginning of life? That's stored in the water.
Yeah, because that's the sense somehow, like when we come into this world with a predisposition, like I'm afraid of spiders or snakes, or that had to have been formed from something.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't in my biology.
Yeah, it's in your water.
Yeah, because I saw a coffin at the age of 5 and freaked out, but I didn't know what a coffin was. And how could I possibly do that? So I spent a lot of time trying to answer that from a philosophical standpoint as I was creating this system. I was trying to understand the body in another way. So one thing when I was channeling was I kept getting this, how many layers of fascia is there? Because there's this question, there's layers. And I kept getting infinite. I'm like, it can't be infinite. It's finite. There is something here. And then the way that I process this, my interpretation is that field is our fascia. And that frequency is a higher frequency, but as it comes towards the center, we have this highly intelligent frequency. It gets denser and denser and denser. As it comes to the skin, it's denser, but all the way down to the bone at the highest level of density. And so if the fascia was our field, the interweaving of life, which connects us to everything, and we process it as just inside the body, this is where the problem was, is what's inside and what's outside. If I describe fascia being the interconnection and in the field, could you accept that or?
Yeah, and I think it's infinite. So the way in which I would put that together is that you've got the fascia that we can see with a micro camera underneath the skin.
Right.
Beautiful. This living spider web of, it looks like fiber optic cables that are moving light energy all over the place. It's spectacular. So that's kind of the 3D version of the fascial plane. Its interface is with the water around it. So it's lymph, it's the plasma, it's this water structure outside of the cellular matrix. And so that water is interfacing with the intracellular water, which is a crystal, liquid crystal. And so the short-term memory is held in the lymph and the liquid states of water. The liquid crystal that forms inside of any single cell because of the amount of electromagnetic field inside of a cell. So the amount of electricity and light energy generated by mitochondria inside the cell doesn't allow liquid to stay liquid. It has to go into this crystal state. And so just like Jello, goes from liquid to hard, it's because it's organizing crystal structure. So the Jello of the water state inside your cells is your longer term memory. The longest term memory in a human body that will last past your biologic lifespan is the bone. And that's a crystal called hydroxyapatite. And so any crystal can store memory in it. Water crystal, extremely good, short-term memory. It's interfacing with bone. And I learned this actually from the indigenous scientists and wisdom keepers out of Africa. They understand for tens of thousands of years of watching animal behavior that the animals keep dying and depositing their bones in the bush at exact points of the ley lines
Right on the ley lines.
And so they understand that the bone is the memory of the animal, and while it dissolves down into the neural network of the planet, it's passing that information into the water of the planet. Water of the planet then down into the crystals of the silica and other minerals there. And so we have all of these hard drives of information that are passing information deeper and deeper into nature. Down at the atomic structure of water is hydrogen. Hydrogen is the most ubiquitous molecule in the entire universe by 99%. Hydrogen is a black hole, and so it's a proton that's formed in a black hole. It's a 64 double tetrahedron. We know that shape really well. It's called the flower of life in some sacred geometries. The two-dimensional version is called the Star of David, or in a three-dimensional depiction in the two dimensions, it's called the Solomon's shield. So these structures are very, 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 very common and recorded in history through sacred geometry of telling us, here's the structure, here's the structure, here's the structure. And the original depiction in the Kabbalah of God was a tetrahedron sitting on the throne.
Right.
And so the tetrahedron is that, one polarity within what we would call a black hole. The other polarity of that is biology. And so you have basically the invisible and the visible come together to create a proton. And the proton is that black hole sitting at the core of reality. And
but that's what a human being is the invisible and the visible.
What life is ultimately.
Right.
Human being, maybe at the center point. And not just human, but any biology are shape and size. And so that was proved in an incredible paper in 2010 by Nassim Haramein. It's called the Universal Scaling Law. And he showed that dead center mathematically of the universe and Planck's constant, largest thing we've ever measured of the universe, smallest thing we've ever measured is the wavelength of the electromagnetic field in a vacuum. We refer to that as Planck's constant. Dead center between those two things is human biology. And so there's something magnificent about this vehicle that I'm in. It's the most complex ecology that nature's ever created, at least on this planet. And it's the mathematical center point of all things that have existed in this universe.
So I found a couple of things. I'm a master of observation, especially human observation. So I found some things about the biology that start to make sense. Number one is God likes math. We have 1, 2, 3 joints, 1, 2, 3 joints, and 1, 2, 3. Anything that lets us be here is in threes. So it's a triangle. And if you're going to clothe the human body, you actually cut triangles to clothe us. So there's all these triangles. Our DNA is made up of triangles that are organized. Anything that moves us through the reality is in twos: 2 feet, 2 knees, 2 hips, 2 shoulders, 2 arms, 2 hands, 2 nose, 2 eyes, 2 ears, which all affect primary movement. So that's like a triangle collapsing one side, and then being able to move, go in a straight line. Anything that commands movement is one with 2 sides, like a brain, or like a heart, or like a liver, which are actually things that actually drive movement and behavior. And I don't pretend to have it figured out, but I have observed these things to be true. And a lot of the fascial maneuvers that we do are based around these sequences and these belief systems. And I observed that. What is that? When I say that to you, what does that strike?
I mean, the language of God is definitely math. Yeah, it's a language, though. And deep to the structures of the body is the electromagnetic field again. And so this is why I walk around the planet every day saying, "Hey, we're at the verge of an extinction.
We are though, right?
We're going to last 40 years, 80 years, at best 200 years more.
We are at a verge of extinction, right?
We're already way into it.
Yeah, like that's actually, because I've heard you say this before, but the fertility rate, which people do not realize, will have our planet extinct, and our human species extinct, somewhere between 40 and 80 years if we keep going, right?
Yeah, somewhere in there. And the scary thing is it might be sooner because we haven't calculated this compounding genetic generational effect. So it could be a cataclysm all of a sudden.
But what stops this? Because I believe in life, and I believe I used to believe that there was evil and good, and I've referred to it now as darkness and light. And it's just my judgment that made that darkness evil, but that darkness seems to be ushering in a new light. I'm actually positive about humanity. But
me too.
Okay, good. So based on math and science, we're going extinct, and it's happening fast.
Genetically, we're going extinct.
Right. So
energetically, we're coming into our moment.
Okay, so let's. I believe that too. So what does that mean?
It's been predicted for 70,000 years by indigenous cultures. And so if you talk to any of the Khoi or the San people of Africa, they will tell you that the end of the epoch comes somewhere in this range of the 2010, 2020, 2030. It's the end of a 70,000 year period.
Sure.
You can then go to South America and you sit with indigenous cultures. They call it the eagle and condor prophecy,
Sure.
where at this moment, then you look to the Mayans in Central Mexico, Central America. They said the calendar ends in 2012. The new calendar will begin after that. And so all over the world, we've been anticipating this moment. And so the moment is when our biology fails and it reveals the energy of the human.
So I agree. So we're a carbon-based being right now, and a lot of people that go on the spiritual side say we're going from carbon to carbon silica hybrid,
Yeah.
then to silica. To put it in perspective, that's kind of like an octopus.
Well, to put it in perspective, it's hydrogen plus calcium.
Yeah.
So on the periodic chart, if you add hydrogen or a black hole, 1 proton, 2 calcium, you end up with silica. Yeah.
So you're a doctor. I want you to feel me.
Yep.
Feel my ear.
Okay.
Like a 6-month-old baby, right?
Okay.
Also in 2019, something radically shifted in my biology, and there was no explanation for it because I had a physical medicine clinic with chiropractors, doctors, craniopathists, had access to x-rays, MRIs, and all that stuff. I one day woke up without a tailbone. I have no idea what that means. I have an assumption that I have this feeling that we're evolving as a species. And if we're evolving as a species, then there has to be some sort of physical evidence of that at some point. Um, and I have gone on this journey to reduce. I used to be 225 pounds bodybuilder. I'm 180 pounds today, and infinitely stronger than I ever was when I was a bodybuilder. I've reduced my muscle to virtually nothing. It's indistinguishable. I can't even feel it anymore. But I have this super ability to adapt to the environment. Like, for example, I breathe 3 breaths per minute. Now, I believe that's because my fascia is so loose that when I breathe, you can actually feel the inflation of my arms and my tissue. In the middle of all these great conversations, sometimes you still need to take a minute to stop and breathe. Let's do that together. We're going to breathe 3 times through the mouth and 3 times through the nose. This is going to activate and rebalance your parasympathetic nervous system so you can absorb more. Breathe in with me through your mouth. 2. 3. Now 3 breaths through the nose. 2. 3. Now with that simple 6-breath reset, you can go back and enjoy more content. If we were to look at, we were moving to an energetic being, what do you think it would look like physical? Like, and I'm just asking, I'm asking for myself because I feel like I'm going through an evolutionary period. Do you think that what you're seeing in front of you or something like that could be leading us into this evolutionary state?
We don't know. We've never been there before. And so that's the exciting thing to me is I love the black box of mystery of nature. Like I love that it never does the same thing twice. Every time she's been through a great extinction event, 5 big ones before we came along, she does something spectacular, never imagined before. We're about to go through that as a planet. Whether humans get to stay and play in our current biology, or we have to metamorph into a completely new biology we can't imagine, or our specific biologic species goes extinct and our genetics now contribute to the next version of intelligent design on the planet, all of those are likely. I think there's this snowball's chance in the heat of everything that we actually get through as our current biology. And so we have to go through something really spectacularly frightening in some ways, which is, are you willing to let go of everything? Are you willing to absolutely surrender your whole concept of self at the biologic level to go through this energetic metamorphosis into the next thing.
You're describing my journey. Like, because with this came 3 years of literal vomiting and puking at once a month for 3 days. I realized it was full moons. And then it came with, so for me today, interesting enough, I don't have a driver's license. I don't have a bank account. I don't use credit cards. Um, I carry everything that I own. I carried here, including the electronic equipment. That's it. I have one suitcase that with electronics, one with my clothes, and that's it. That was my dissolution of self, and that just felt like natural.
Mhm.
It felt like something I should do. And obviously, there's a team around of people that have to allow that to support. But it's given me this sense of freedom, and I want that freedom for other people. And I feel that that part of our economic system is tied to this biological model that we are a meat suit, and we we have to consume other meat in order to make it happen, and we have to live in this way where we're in fear and harm, or we have to survive. It's survival of the fittest, and I just don't see the world that way anymore. Do you?
I think we're light beings that are generating a small portion of our light into a particle. And so
And there's more to
I
come.
don't think we're a meat suit. I think we're constantly generating light energy that's creating moment to moment, every millionth of a second, recreating a particle state that we would call a human body. The only reason we develop disease in that body is we uncouple through the frailty of the human mind through the use of story, which then generates unhealthy emotions and store those, and then we separate the energy field from the biology, and now we created an aging, diseased body.
How do we get rid of the aging disease?
We go back to what happened in the womb. And so,
What happened where?
in the womb,
Oh, in the womb.
my mother didn't design me. I didn't come from her. Not a single cell in my body came from my mother, in the sense that what happened between mother and me was an energetic erasure and imprint of a new identity on an egg. We call that conception.
So, do you believe in immaculate conception?
I think that we're all immaculately conceived in that sense.
Okay, I
We
believe
don't
that
come
too.
from a mother and a father biologically.
Yes,
We come from an energy field that predated either
right.
mother or
And
father.
decides and puts it into
And then it
biology.
imprints on that egg that happened to be fertilized between sperm and egg. But we've known many, many times that just fertilizing an egg doesn't lead to an embryo.
Yeah, we've seen that over and over again. So why is it the magic of that one time when the light sparks?
You need a quantum entanglement.
Yeah.
And so what happens at that light discharge, which is called the zinc flash, it blinds the microscope during in vitro fertilization.
Yeah, you can't even see it.
Blindingly bright discharge. What's creating that? 600,000 mitochondria.
So
An average human cell has 200 mitochondria. The egg has 600,000.
That's amazing.
There's a massive energy potential stored in that egg. The moment of the light discharge is when a physics energy field that is very established identity can quantum entangle with that biologic cell. If that flash is not bright enough, or the stars are not aligned right, and you don't get that biologic proximity and the enough energy discharge to quantum entangle a soul with that egg, you get no life. The cell is there for a day or two and then it miscarries. If you get an incomplete imprint, it will turn into a molar pregnancy, which is a tumor that can kill the woman. If it makes it to second, week, third week, fourth week, and then miscarriages, it's because there's too much interference between the soul that's imprinted and the biology that's achieving, and that's often caused by too much energy disruption in the mother's womb from emotional coding or a decrease in progesterone in her body. Progesterone is the necessary cloak that she would put over her womb. The only way that life can actually occur in a mother's womb is she completely blinds herself to what happens in there. If for a moment her immune system can see inside the womb, it kills the infant immediately.
So one of the things that there's very little science around what I do, but there's a lot of results. And one of the things that came to me through this journey in bringing this into the world, and by the way, the reason why it's free is because I don't believe I owned it. I believe this is an idea that was coming into the world, and I stewarded it in. I put my hand, said, I'll do it. Had I known the price I was going to pay at the time, I might have chosen something differently, but I'm at the other side of it now. When we do this, what we've seen, is in the midbrain, in the limbic region of the brain. The very first time somebody does that, it wakes up something in the midbrain. And I don't know what it is, but
Memory.
in memory, this is a fetal position. So all of our fascial maneuvers, every single one of them is a fetal position. And what was ironic for me is we were talking about this today because I'm going to go to Greece, it looks like, after Sweden. The one of the intuitions that came to me was it was the Greek statues. I was trying to
The
resolve.
thinking man.
Yeah,
The thinking man is doing that position. And is he really thinking or is he remembering?
thinking man. There's two that did it. Thinking man, I thought of my whole life and didn't know why, and the other one was Achilles.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to release my
Achilles
bladder, yeah, my bladder meridian, which is fear. And when I turned back, I realized it was Achilles, and I said, "Well, wait a second here. What if those statues were a symbol of how we work or we function? What if they took away all the description?" And then there was actually a show called the OA. Did you see that?
Oh, yeah.
That's where I knew I had to do movements together with people. Those two things stimulated fascial maneuvers. I mean, a lot of things stimulated it, but one of the biggest one was I'm in clinical practice, and things weren't when all of the money, 17.5 million of my dollars over 35 years, I couldn't get myself out of pain using all modalities. I knew that there had to be something beyond this, and that's when I started doing these little maneuvers, which after 3 months ended my 35-year journey.
Yeah.
What's next for you? I mean, Professor, I'm super positive about where we're going. So do you have a vision of what's going to happen? You're working with reconstructing the energy systems of the world right now using biology, which I find so cool. I mean, I can sit there and listen to you for days talking about that. What happens next? Where do you think we're going, and when?
Once we come to terms with the fact that life is the result of the consolidation or concentration of light energy, we can all participate in the miracle of life. That's the breakthrough that we're about to make scientifically and at an industry level,
How
at
long
an
does that
economy
take?
level. We can do it overnight. We just all need to understand the matrix that's already been proven. So light concentration is achieved by carbon energy. And so long strings of carbon store sunlight. We call them carbohydrates or fats, but those are just long carbon chains storing photons of light energy between the carbons. It's a perfect battery. It can stay there in soil for 60 million years, become lignite for 160 million years, become coal, another 100 million become oil. Those carbon bonds will continue to store that sunlight for those hundreds of millions of years. You go burn the oil or you burn the log from the fireplace, all of that is releasing the sunlight that was stored in the carbon bonds of life. Concentration of light energy is the way in which life occurs. The more nutrient density and the more light energy that we concentrate on this planet, the more intelligent the whole system is going to get. The deserts are about to regreen.
You're
1/3
working
of
on
the
that now.
planet.
You're working on the
The
desert.
planet's working on it. I'm just
Okay.
trying to bring human systems in alignment with it.
Right. Okay. Fair statement. Because in Africa, there's water coming up,
The Sahara is going green.
and the Sahara is going green. Man, I want to see that.
It's going to happen in your lifetime.
Yeah. No, I want to actually go see where it's happening right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, so September of 2024, lakes appeared all over North Africa overnight. A 75 square mile lake appeared in the deserts of Morocco and the sand dunes overnight. The water table is moving, and so rain is starting to stay on top of the soil. And so we're starting to get to this amazing electromagnetic field shift on the planet. It's been mapped by the Jet Propulsion Lab and NASA and everybody else. And then so there's a pole shift happening, and so the North Pole magnetically is moving from
Yes.
favoring the North American kind of hemisphere over to Siberia. And so there's been thousands of kilometers move in the North Pole magnetically over the last
And
30,
pulls
40 years.
water, everything,
Pulls
resources,
water.
and
Water pulls the electromagnetic field. It's a magnet. At the same time that the pole has shifted to be straight over Africa, now it's weakened its pole on the southern end of Africa and South America. It's called the Southern Anomaly. And that has grown radically over the last 10 years. And it started as a little dot in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. It now encompasses almost all of South America and most of southern Africa. And so we're weakening the electromagnetic field in the south, and we're strengthening and moving the North Pole, we meaning the planet Earth and its intelligence. And so we're bringing water back to the northern hemisphere. And 1/3 of the planet in desert is all in the northern hemisphere. That's the Sahara Desert, the Middle East, Siberia, India, North China. And so 1/3 of the northern hemisphere in desert. As that regreens, we're going to see more life force on the planet than we have in thousands of years, tens of thousands of years. And actually, because of the oil companies, which have liberated deep resources of carbon back to the atmosphere to be breathed by that greenery, we're going to have a more verdant planet than we have in 4 billion years. Over the next 50 years, we will have the greenest planet in the world if humans will stop doing the wrong thing. We got to stop chemical farming. We got to stop fencing Africa. If we can stop those two things and let the animals rewild the rivers, regenerative agriculture take over food production, and reconnected economies, meaning we start to back economies with carbon metabolism as a real asset, we start to generate with every single human activity a cooperative relationship to this rebirth of the planet. And we will go into the most verdant and most abundant nutrition and nutrient environment humans have ever lived in, and our energy will compound radically.
The Garden of Eden.
The Garden of Eden will rebirth. And it's going to happen out of the same meridian that the Garden of Eden has always sat on.
Right.
It's going to be on Zep Tepi, original time, which starts on the west coast of South Africa, goes through the Rift Valley of Ethiopia, up through Cairo, Egypt, with the 3 pyramids, all the way up through Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, all the way up to Scandinavia, where all the old stone circles are. All of the energetic centers that were built over the last tens of thousands of years were put on that line because it was understood that the planet is energetic before it is biologic. And if you compound the energy available to the Earth, it will rebirth more verdant, with more biodiversity, more intelligence every time. And she's done it again and again and again.
And that's actually what's happening. That's because even the pyramids, they require the water source to function. So when water comes back at the levels, then
those pyramids will activate.
Those pyramids will activate. That's some of the. It's very seldom I ever get anybody I can talk to about this, but you have such an immense and innate knowledge about how this all works.
I would say that last sentence was super accurate. There is an innate awareness of how it all works.
Mhm.
I am less intelligent than many people.
Fair,
My
fair
sister
statement.
tests more intelligent than me all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm not any more intelligent than any science, but somewhere along the line, because of my surrender of my mind and then surrender more recently of my heart, I found out that I could be super still.
So we have a lot of practitioners that are joining our movement, and the movement is the self-care. It's through felt sense, not known sense. Um, and what do you? And they're in a school of religion that's telling them that this is the way it is, and they're going against it, and they're finding their way. What do you say to other doctors or clinicians that are out there that are looking to make this change? What is it that they should look at first? And what are some practices that they can take?
I think literally it's surrendering the mind and surrendering your emotional, interpretation of the world, and get silent. As a practitioner, you are a supercomputer. The technique that I accidentally developed in clinic was a hug. And it's just that simple thing of hugging a patient, letting them feel seen and felt within a clinic setting, became a potent diagnostic tool. I found out over the years that I could feel inside of from their electromagnetic field, I could sense where they had stress, where they were depleted, where they had excess, where they had chaos. And all I had to do was hold super still in a hug. And my energy field read the whole thing. My intelligence is not from my mind. It's not from my emotional care of patients. It's from the energy field that is the quantum field. It is this quantum sensing environment that would allow me to hit a baseball or sense where disease is in another human being.
So what's stopping them from getting there right now?
Their emotional storytelling and the chemical trauma, the genetics. They keep in
Chemical
a
trauma.
story that they are a genetic creature.
Yeah.
If they are told from the beginning, you are a child of the divine, you are a sovereign being that knit yourself together in your mother's womb. You came through your mother, but not of your mother. You're not from your mom and dad. You are from source. You will stay connected to source until you let go of that body. And as soon as you let go of that body, you will be back in the infinite nature of reality, divorced from your limited human mind and experience. So don't forget you're from source and you're whole. And you will leave connected and of source and whole.
So
don't believe the story that you're disconnected between those two
Right.
events. So if we start empowering our children at age 3, 5 years old, to trust what they're feeling inside of their body, instead of saying, stop throwing your fit, stand in line, go take the test, go do the thing, go sit quietly in school, listen to your teacher. We got to stop this. And this was told to us by Khalil Gibran 100 years ago when he was asked, how should you parent? He says, super easy to parent. Every day you strive to think more like your child, and you make sure you never tell your child how to think like you. We have to surrender ourselves back to our child. I am a child born of the masculine and feminine within me. If I didn't have balanced light and dark, masculine and feminine, if I wasn't a perfect electromagnetic field balanced in all of its double toroidal field of the masculine and feminine, I couldn't have generated a single human cell, let alone multiple 70 trillion. And I couldn't constantly be repairing myself back to the original design, which I've been doing every millionth of a second since I was born. And so if we start training our children that they are a biologic expression of a quantum field that we would call a soul that's been here since the beginning of time, and it's imperturbable, and it can't be programmed by any other person, it can't be owned by any other person, and the traumas received from chemicals or human emotions are irrelevant to the original design. So keep tuning back into the original design. We would be generative machines. And this is why I have so much joy inside of me, is we're about to find the fallacy of Western medicine. We're about to find the fallacy of biohacking. We're about to find the fallacy of biology.
Can I actually hit on that, because I came up through biohacking, but through the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
And what I see right now, and I'm going to say something that's going to piss off a lot of people, but what I've seen is some of the sickest people actually are the biohackers, because they're.
I agree completely.
Okay, and tell me from your scientific viewpoint why that is.
Because they're disrupting a symphony.
Right. And it's like trying to take in a garden, it's like taking the snake out of the garden or taking the rats out. There's a system that flows together. And what I say to people is that that this little mind isn't smart enough to understand the biology, the super, the awesomeness of humanity and who we are. We can't compute it, and we're trying to play God with it.
Surrender to the bigger system all the time, and that's what we've been watching under the lab, in our laboratory under the microscope for the last 15 years. I went from poisoning cells to develop chemotherapy, to nourishing cells as a method for eliminating cancer, to realizing that the body is nourished by the soil systems within it. It's not even a human phenomenon.
Yeah.
Health is not a human phenomenon, it's an ecosystem effect. So the beginning of human health happens when the ecology is understood as the source of biology. It's not our 20,000 human genes that make me a human being. It's impossible. A flea has 30,000 genes. My genetics are not intelligent. They're almost non-existent.
Right.
I'm an energetic compilation of a restorative, regenerative system of ecology that continues to imagine itself into a single quorum sensing intelligence much greater than any of its components. We eliminate the microbiome of my gut, my intelligence goes down, my mental health goes down, my biologic recovery goes down, and I get cancer within 2 years.
Okay, I've had a couple things, because I want to now I've got you're here to ask the questions. I've witnessed over 1,000 gallbladders grow back. Can the body regenerate, in your opinion? I mean, a liver does. I've seen gallbladders. Should we be able to regenerate?
We are regenerating,
right,
every millionth of a second.
So why is it that we're not regenerating in capacity, whether it's a finger? I mean, it has happened, it's documented.
Because we disrupt the electromagnetic field with story and emotion.
And it's the story, it's the belief system.
Yeah.
So Torgen Biopharma found a protein, USAG1, that when you block the protein, your teeth grow again.
Mm-hmm.
And they've actually released that it's in USA, or the FDA has cleared it, and it's starting to come in. But my thought was simplicity. And I've gone to extreme lengths to do this because I had some issues with my teeth. I thought, well, if that protein there, how did it get blocked?
Yeah.
Where did it start? Because I had this interesting observation. All these human skulls that you see, from time back when, they always had perfect set of teeth. And I'm like, come on, like no tiger, no guy knocked out a tooth somewhere when they were adults. Like, how's that possible? People say, because they ate different. I'm like, no, I'm not talking about eating. I'm talking about somebody elbowing you and taking out a tooth. That happens all the time. But how come they always have perfect set of teeth? I would ascertain that at one time, human beings actually continue to regenerate their teeth.
And that story is actually really well told in the Qigong world. So Chinese medicine, the Qigong science, they would go into a cave for 40 days to regenerate their teeth. All their teeth would come out in the journey, and they would come out with a full set of teeth.
Where's the cave?
It wasn't the cave, it was the darkness.
Yeah, it was the darkness. Okay, so because I've been going through that journey myself, and I decided not to affect my biology. I chose not to alter my teeth and do stuff, and it's been a journey. I've been documenting it, and I've been public about it too. Um, what are what are some things that people can do right now to impact? Actually, before that, let's talk about some of the current ones. I've got over 100 million views on a topic around nicotine and spike proteins. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a good band-aid. You know, almost everything that we throw at the interface between cell membranes and spike protein is relatively effective. Any piece of nature can step in between those two things. And
It's a way that works. But
yeah, it's one of the many things. And so I think there's tens of thousands of things that will disrupt the effect of spike proteins on
so tell me
cell
some other
receptors in
ones.
human genomics.
Like you have some stuff yourself.
Well, ion is the stuff made by bacteria and fungi, and so the soil systems are making these complex molecules that interface with the redox signaling molecules. Redox is the way in which communication happens before you rely on proteins, cascades. Something like your curcumin is working through a cascade of proteins that then affect genomic sequencing.
How'd you
and
like your
information.
curcumin, by the way?
That's a good one, I'm sure. But that curcumin, is a good example of something that's working through kind of the machinery of
Yeah.
the human body. The electromagnetic field is working through redox molecules. And so when you generate light energy from all the carbon molecules that are being burned by the mitochondria, that light is transiting information through the redox chemistry made by bacteria and fungi. And so we find that ion is in a really rapid way to regenerate cells and overcome any stimulus that would decrease the regenerative aspect of cells. So spike protein is basically just sort of sludge, right?
Sure.
Just slow down the regenerative effect. You can bypass that by going energetic instead of protein synthesis genetics. And so the energetics are transferred by redox.
This is what your product is doing, right?
That's what soil systems are doing, and the product is capturing those molecules out of fossil soils before they were damaged by glyphosate.
And your product, the ones that you're bringing to market that help with this.
Ion is the brand there, Intelligence of Nature, yeah.
So the other thing too is there's been this release of patents here recently, which I've got a little chart on this, which is kind of scary. There's a couple venomous proteins, snake, wasp,
Scorpion, and the rest, yeah.
and then these are all the companies that since 2020 that have patented, that have made patents on all of those venoms. And then here's the delivery mechanism. It's foods.
Yep.
Poisoning us again, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's an old model, and you would ask, like, why is that? And it's storytelling, ultimately. And so there's a lot of, powerful economic machinery around the world that we would call companies or high net worth individuals that have been told a story that there's too many humans on the planet. And the only way for us to survive is decrease the number of humans on the planet. And frankly, I would agree with that in our current behavior.
In our current behavior, that makes sense. But I believe that we're superseding that
behavior change possible?
Because we're coming to a point where we're coming to a crest point where we just can't go forward. And darkness.
When humans start to understand that we're light beings and we can generate light through carbon molecules, and when interplaying with biodiversity within our bodies and in the environment around us will compound life on Earth, we'll realize that every human being here is actually the ultimate pollinator. We are the best keystone species this Earth has ever created. We will create more generative life than any other species. 8 billion would be way better than 5 billion. When we learn to be generative engines, as we should be, our birthright is to be a keystone species. Right now, our current behavior is the opposite. Where we set foot, we decrease biodiversity, and we create monotony and monoculture of human behavior all the way to corn crops. And so right now, we've stepped out of our birthright, and we are behaving as an abused and abandoned child. And so we're acting out against everything. We are triggered by everything nature has. When we overcome our universal abandonment disorder, we think we got abandoned by nature. Garden of Eden, we got kicked out. When we overcome that story and realize, oh my God, we are the most complex intelligence this universe has ever created at a chakra center, not of a planet, but of an entire universe, isn't there a great moment coming when this planet is going to shift its vibration and change the frequency of an entire universe, because we sit at a very potent chakra center or acupuncture point of the entire universe?
Maybe the nucleus.
Is it? Well, I'd say that there's many other, but I think that we're sitting at a chakra center, maybe the heart chakra center of the universe.
Okay, I can.
And if we change the energy of that and we start transmitting off of this planet a different frequency, right now we're transmitting what we could call the heart of darkness. Not evil, just darkness. We've been abandoned by
Sure.
nature. We believe that the darkness is
We're kids that have been abandoned and we're rebelling.
We're the abandonment disorder of nature. The neurologic behavior of abandonment is addiction.
Okay, so
we are addicted to everything.
We're addicted to everything. So there's a couple of things. Along the journey, I realized that maybe we shouldn't be cutting the umbilical cord.
Very true.
Okay.
Which any midwife will tell you.
Yeah.
Let the mother hold the child until the umbilical cord not only stops pulsing, but until it's really fully drained.
I heard from a practice called Lotus Birth afterwards, because I had this vision that we shouldn't cut the umbilical cord, and I thought, who's the first when the baby came out? There are no doctors, nobody around, and you're all alone. Who decided that even that baby, you have this love and attachment? I have kids, and who decided that it would be a good idea to cut something off of it? And where did that come? How did they do it? Did they use a rock? Did they chew it off? There's a practice called Lotus Birthing where it just removes itself on the third day.
Yeah.
And
so remember, the placenta has to be birthed after the baby. And so, a lot of nurse practitioners and doulas and the rest will allow that placenta birth to happen. But you're right. There's a natural apoptosis that happens at the umbilicus for the cord to remove itself over time through apoptosis.
So, from a fascial point of view, I said, well, that's a shock to the body. I think we're the smallest species of humans because we got some bones out there that say that we've got 20, 21 feet, human beings at some point. So it looks like that was a shock, and that was actually the separation.
It's one of the many forms. I think in our fear of nature, we create abandonment at every level.
Yeah, I felt like it started there, and it just kept going. What about there's another topic that's really core in our audience. We have tens of thousands of women reporting with medical evidence that they're coming out of menopause between 55 and 67, just following our simple mineralization, take the body out of stress, move the fascial tissue. Do you think menopause is a natural course of human evolution?
Coming out of menopause?
Yeah.
Or is menopause natural?
Is menopause natural?
Yeah. Menopause is natural because really what you're doing is you're starting to put all of your life force into creating your own self rather than progeny. And so the gift of aging is that at some point you become the child again. And so I think
what age should that happen, though? Because we have stories. You follow Kabbalah. Moses and Sarah had kids at 500 and 300 years old.
Yeah, I think it has nothing to do with chronological age ultimately.
Correct.
And so
that's a great way of saying it.
The chronology isn't the basis of what are you here to do. The life path is here. And so right now we're living a life path of an average age of 78 years old, and it's now decrementing. I think we're at 76.5 as males now or something in the United States. And so we have a biologic, lifespan built on chronology that's decreasing right now. With changes in the environment and everything else, we can anticipate that would radically change, especially as we start to go back to releasing the stories of a short lifespan, disconnected from nature, all these things. The fear, guilt, and shame that's driving human biology and behavior right now is what's really shortening our life.
Fair statement.
And I think that that's what's been prophesied in this time. There was a prophecy that came out a decade or two ago that between the years of 2017 and 2027, in that 10-year period, we would lose the genetics of fear, guilt, and shame.
I believe that that's actually true. As a matter of fact, one of the origins of fascial maneuvers was a thing called anti-gravity, and it's down like that in between your knees. And when I was doing it in the shower, because I was trying to help myself in the clinic. I hated going back and asking my own staff for help twice a day because I needed it, because it's just something in me hardwired didn't want to ask for help in that way. And I was down in a fetal position like this, and I had a memory that came in of being a monkey and being urinated on by the monkeys, ashamed. And the memory I'd never had an experience like that ever before. I literally fell out of the shower, rolled out. And do you know Christopher Ryan, who wrote Sex at Dawn?
Yeah, I don't know personally, but I know of his work.
So I worked with him and his wife, and he wrote a book called Civilized to Death. And so I had this experience that was so real, and I'd never had an experience like this before. And I went to I got out of the shower, and I was trying to process this experience because it was more real than the food I ate before I got in the shower. And it was a memory. It didn't feel like something other than memory. It felt like a memory. I went to my closet and pulled out a shirt and shorts as I'm drying off and still trying to grasp what happened. And I never keep logoed shirts except for my own logoed shirts. I always take people ones they give me and put it in a drawer. But this one shirt he gave me, I kept leaving the closet. I'd never worn it. I pulled it out, and but not knowing, and it had a picture of a monkey with a cigar and a scotch, and it said "Civilized to Death." And I'm like, whoa, the timing of that was amazing. And then the next morning is when had no tailbone.
Hmm.
That's the story.
Hmm.
And I can verify the story through my staff who adjusted me and worked on me, but I have no other explanation for it.
Yeah.
But that was one of the things, and that was around the
And how's that gift changed your life?
From that day forward, I started detaching from everything that I knew as humanity. I stopped buying things. I gave up I cared less about money. I sold everything or just gradually got rid of it. I processed my identity change, and one of them was when these fascial maneuvers started coming into the world. I didn't have a reference for it, but I just knew I had to get rid of the clinic. I knew I had to stop helping people in that way. I knew how to teach people. And then through a couple of inputs, the Greek statues, the OA, and a couple other things, I knew it had to be something that people did in movement to restore movement. And the origin of all movement is breath. It biologically, I'm super adaptive. I had issues with my hip and lower back, all gone that day. It allowed me to move at literally lightning speeds. But I feel like the biggest thing was, in 2021, I went on a 44-day fast with my partners, Jason and Cynthia. And those two connecting points is what did it for me, because there's an innate sense of fear of not being able to eat or food. And I lost the fear of food because at 40, and what was funny is at the end of 44 days, I was fat. I wasn't skinny. Like I definitely didn't look like I'd fasted 44 days. And I was almost disappointed by that. But that that gave me the belief that I said, there's something happening to me I can't explain biologically. No one can. So that gave me the belief that there's something continuing to happen to me. So when I went through this 3 years of detox that were just immense, and like if people were to see me, people who did see me said, you got to go to a doctor all the time. And I just kept believing it, that I was going to be okay. And then the fast, that connected that lack of losing the fear of food as a survival mechanism, connected to that experience, is what gave me the insight and the drive to do what I'm doing today.
So you lost the cognitive fear of food, but the fact that the weight gain was still happening biologically brings up something I saw in clinic often, which is there's also an energetic memory that has to be lost.
Emotions.
And so there's emotional patterning of not enough, or scarcity of food, or scarcity of calories that may have existed in that field. So you lose the mental thing, that's half your battle. And now you got to go find where that water memory is of the wound.
Yeah, so what happened was, as I kept a consistent behavior, got myself into nature every day,
There you go.
did these fascial maneuvers on a regular basis. We were in the mountains in Canada, outside of Vancouver on the way to Whistler, Lions Bay. And if you ever want to come and stay there, we have a center there. It's completely open, and actually no one's even staying there right now. It looks out over the water. So I got there during the pandemic, and we stayed there for 3 years, and we didn't move. I went through this fasting. I fasted 15 to 20 days a month, every month, and it still didn't lose weight. And then I had this emotional release on the beach. And after that emotional release, within 48 hours, I lost 25 pounds.
Mhm.
It just went like this. And then I was connected, because I know you believe this too, but um, connected the weight loss. There is some mechanics to what I eat and what my weight is, but there's a greater mechanics to what I feel and what my emotions are about it.
Yeah, that's right. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
I've seen that over and over again in clinic. Is there's the emotional imprint and the water structure is so much more potent than the stories we're telling even in our head. And so the first journey is into clearing this. The second journey is in clearing this space. And that's taken me 15 years of, thinking I had won the game, because I came out of my mental game of being a doctor and found myself into a heart-centered, expression of everything must be love. And if I build clinic out of love, and I build patient relationships out of love, and build a new marriage out of love, and take care of my communities out of love, I must be winning the game. Everything was so unstable. My companies were unstable. My relationships were unstable. Everything was not making any sense. And in that journey, what I found out is I had set myself up for just the right amount of heartbreaks, which was probably 1,000 heartbreaks over a 15-year period. Some of them massive, ends of big relationships and marriages, and
That's what happened to me.
loss of children. Some of them were deep, deep. The most recent ones were a loss of my companies and my sense of allegiance and family to my employees and all this stuff. All of that was codependent, heart-based stuff. I finally broke my heart, just enough times to completely lose that container. And that happened just a few months back. And I can't really describe the relief of falling out of my heart space and down into my belly. And came out of my heart, or came out of my head, came out of the heart, found myself down in this quiet space with almost hilarity at my own, lack of observation. If the creative source of Zach Bush was really supposed to be up in the head, then every womb of every mother would be up here. If we were really supposed to create from the heart, then every womb would be right in the middle of our chest. Every womb has to necessarily be down in the quiet center that they call the Donqian, or the silent soul, or the silent cave of the human. That silent space within our bellies is where we're supposed to create from, and not of our own human mind or from our own human heart, but create from the original design of the soul. And so I'm slowly rebuilding my whole world over these last months from this quiet space, instead of from the busy kind of codependent spaces that I've been living my life out of.
That's what happened to me. I mean, I tore apart everything: my marriage, my businesses, my life, my family. And what my journey personally is I took care of me. And as I took care of me physically, then emotionally, then perceptually, all of those things started to rebuild. And so my life around me started to rebuild. And this is part of this now expression. And after 5 years of doing that, then it became, uh, I noticed that the momentum of the movement that we started happened. And it just started skyrocketing, and where there's nothing to stop it. And now I'm in union with that. But literally, it just felt like going through hell and back over many times. I'm I didn't know that you'd gone through that part of the journey.
Yeah.
That's where your
Oh,
connection to Eliyahu?
actually, a lot of my indigenous elders from around the world. So I'm blessed to be, kind of in the midst of a couple of elder groups that have been organized out of Africa and other places now. And when you get 33 or 50 different wisdom lines together, and you realize they're all speaking the same wisdom, and then you put them into a quorum, the amount of hyperintelligence that comes out of that space is beyond any government, it's beyond any economy. And they're speaking to this metamorphosis of the human being as we let go of biology and become energetic for a moment, so that we can reorganize biology around us again and step into our rightful birthright. We are a keystone species. We're here to generate a planet to its fullest potential it's ever had. It's not going to be a story of humans destroying the planet. Whatever biology persists in our next iteration will be the rebirth of a planet to its most exuberant, most energetic, most fantastically expressive and diverse expression of beauty that we could possibly imagine. And so we are here on great purpose. And it is a great honor to be alive right now, because I believe the beings that are here on this planet, 8 billion strong, are all part of that equation of deep transformation. I think by the end of this decade, we will have a completely different understanding of human biology for sure, but more important, human purpose and why did we show up?
I agree.
What are we here to do?
I agree. I completely agree, and the timeline meshes with what I believe. And it was prophesized. I follow astrology. The reason I closed my clinic in 2019 in December is because I saw the world changing January 15th, which was, in fact, the first COVID case. Again, that's a story, but that story had to come into place to be where we are. Um,
The
wow.
coronation.
I'm just super um, excited about being here with you. You have definitely gone through the journey, and the amount of innate wisdom that you have processing through this, I believe, is the answer for people who are transiting this journey, because they need to have somebody to believe in, or somebody to help them understand or understand. And I really feel like I mean, I've listened to your stuff over the years, but talking to you today, I see a completely different person than I got to know in the media.
Over the years, we've developed an 8-week program so that people can find out that that person that they need to trust is them.
Yeah.
Not a doctor, not a scientist.
And that's our message.
It's your inner voice.
That's
And
our message.
that's your truth. And when you find your truth, you become pretty unflappable. But it doesn't mean you don't feel everything. Like, I feel more today living outside of my heart and head than I ever did when I was in those spaces. I can feel on a daily basis the super heights of ecstasy, of authenticity, of joy, of unconditional love, of bliss, and deep depression, deep psychosis of the human condition, the deep, deep heartbreak that humans continue to behave this way. Today, children are being trafficked for sex and for drug trades and the rest. Today, we will start more wars around the planet to radicalize another generation of children to kill each other next year. It is a horrible thing to witness the self-destruction of a species believing itself to be abandoned by nature. And it's a wondrous thing to see that species take itself to such a brink of extinction that it will have no choice but to trust something deeper than the biology.
But isn't that how it goes? And
That's
it's
how it
like
goes this time.
we have to come to this brink. When the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change, the species of human will change.
There it is.
I haven't met almost anybody who's gone through this part of the journey. So I'd say I feel less alone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Today is a Libra day in Gemini. It's a day to restore balance back into communications, and it's at a global level. And we have a big engine. We have a big media engine, and I think that I feel that the conversation that we had today is going to do something.
I think this is the beginning of a new humanity that's unfolding right now, and uh, I think that there's many, many more people than have been able to let on to you that have walked the full journey that you've
Oh
walked,
yeah,
and
yeah. You just don't meet them very often.
we haven't created very many social situations where it's safe enough to admit the journey we've been on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm blowing it out. I tell everybody all my shit. For me, because I encrypted data for governments, and in 2005 they arrested me because I didn't want to play along anymore. They said I was a drug trafficker. They put me in solitary confinement for 17 months. I spent 27 months in federal custody.
Look how much curcumin you're selling.
I did. Yeah, the drug. Yeah, it was crazy. It was because I used to encrypt data for governments, and they said I was a drug dealer, and yeah, they had. I mean, it was deep. They had an informant that was my personal assistant for 2.5 years. That had to work for another company for 2 years to get the job.
Wow.
I mean, it was deep.
What if you went back in a cave? Go back into solitary confinement, go back into the darkness, and this time instead of asking to let go of the pain, ask to step into bliss.
Yeah, I mean, that's what my journey was from 2019 to 2023.
Find the bliss.
Yeah, it was. I had a moment in prison actually when I was negotiating my way out, and I like I'm done. I'm done with the government. We're gonna go our separate ways. Like I'm not gonna sue them. They're not gonna come after me anymore. I'm gonna leave, and I know my date. It's coming soon. It's political, and I was working out every day. because they didn't want to give me a job because they didn't want me to get hurt because they didn't want. So I got to work out every day, twice a day. Got to walk the yard. I got to go for a nap when everybody else was sleeping. And I got up, and I never had a time in my life where it hadn't worked. So I got up, and I went to my friend's locker to get bootleg chocolate, contraband that he brought in. And I thought to myself, wow, man, this is so awesome. I have the ability to do this and be in this space and do this. And then I found bliss in the present. And that, I go back to that all the time, because if I could find bliss in that space, I could find it in any space, whether it was painful or not. And that was what drove me to where I am today.
It's incredible, and it's really a statement on the condition of humanity. I just saw a recent statistic, maybe just a couple weeks ago, that said that the 80% of Americans are getting less time in nature than people in high security prison.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we've all created our prison cells.
Yeah, that's
in our abandonment from nature, we're all in solitary confinement. 35% of meals consumed in the United States are consumed alone behind a steering wheel. We have created severe isolation in our social behaviors, and we are all living in solitary confinement right now.
Yeah.
And COVID was just an easy story to justify.
To justify it.
And we were so eager to rush to our homes, be alone, mask. We didn't want to look at it. We didn't want anybody to see our face before COVID. It was so convenient to be able to put a mask on every time we went out socially. We bought the story not because it made any sense scientifically, but because it really fit the way we feel inside.
That I agree with that.
And so we bought into a story that justified the fear, guilt, and shame that we felt inside of ourselves. And so we behaved as a collective group think because it fit the way we felt. And it's time for us to feel something different. And to feel different, you're going to have to clear the emotional patterns and clear the computer programming that you are from your mom, from your dad. You're carrying all this ancestral trauma, and no.
Yeah.
You're an energetic being untouched by the trauma.
Yes.
Step into your energetics.
Yeah.
Become whole.
Tell a new story.
Tell a new story, which is new from you. You are from you. You are from source. You are from you. You are the child. You are the child of your masculine, your feminine, your perfect electromagnetic field. Rebirth yourself today. Come out of solitary confinement.
We're going to have to spend some time together.
Let's do it.
Zach, I really appreciate the time today.
Honored to be with you and every other 8 billion people on the planet.
Thanks for tuning in. And if you enjoyed this content, follow us on social media channels, The Human Garage Experience, Apple, Spotify, and all other channels. We're on a mission to inspire 1 billion people worldwide, and the way that you participate is by liking, subscribing, and sharing our content. Every share that you take brings us one step closer to that billion people. This has been a fantastic episode. We enjoyed presenting it to you. Be a part of this worldwide revolution and share it now.